So before we get started, I kind of thought about the name Shorty Snack and Learn. Shorty is our mascot. So it's not a random name. That is the name of our mascot in Schulenburg ISD. And so we named it after him, Shorty Snack and Learn. He's also behind us. He's the cutest little mascot. So before we get started, I kind of wanted to go into a little bit of our school profile. So we are halfway to everywhere in Schulenburg, Texas. We have like 4 big gas stations on I-10. And that's how you know you made it here. You can actually see the elementary school from I-10 if you drive by. That is how close we are to it. And it kind of makes a really unique population of people. And so our whole entire population is 2,800 around that right now, which is mind-blowing to me because I went to a high school with 4,000. So you can squeeze this whole town into one high school. It's wild. But when you look at our taper, you can see that we have 273 students on our campus. And so when you break that down, our African-American population is about 15%. Our white population is 40%. Our Hispanic population is 40%. And then our economically disadvantaged is nearly 75%. This was last year. This year, I think we're around 65 is what you told me before the meeting started. And so we also have a lot of English language learning students. We are at 18%. I feel like that actually is a little skewed because some of our parents do not answer the home language survey appropriately. We have quite a few students who speak no English at all. And so that is just a little bit about that elementary profile. And it's important because it goes into kind of the purpose and location of where we wanted to do this event.
And let me talk to you a little bit about the population. You know, there are some percentages there, and especially our economically disadvantaged students. Economically disadvantaged looks different in every community. And one thing that I want everybody to understand is that our students who are coming from poor families are very, very poor. We're not talking borderline, barely made it to the qualification. We're talking very, very poor. Parents working 3 and 4 jobs or no job at all. We're talking about homes that are just homes that none of us would want to live in. It's a situation that the community is aware of, and constant community organizations. The one of the best things about this community is that there are so many nonprofits and businesses that try to help take care of the families in the community. And I think the fact that the district had the recognition that there was something like this that needed to be done is a pretty big thing. That's a pretty big thing. And also, in talking about engagement with our families, one of the things that we know for sure from research and data, and even some research that I've done myself, is that oftentimes we have a more difficult time getting families who are struggling financially to be engaged in their students' education. And there are all kinds of reasons for that. The not feeling welcomed, and also not feeling like they know what to do. And what Shorty Snack and Learn does is it takes all of those barriers and it throws them aside and puts the families in a situation where they can be a part of their child's education. So remember, as you're listening to Kacy describe what's going on, we're not talking about a wealthy community, and we're not talking about a community where everybody has everything. We're talking about a community where the majority of people do not. The majority do not.
And then I also wanted to kind of spend some time looking at our STAR scores, because this also, is purpose driven in what we choose to do when we're doing Shorty Snack and Learn. We, as you can tell, like our scores, our target is math. We had, 64% approach in 3rd, 46% approach in 4th, and in 5th grade, 63% approach. And our reading scores are a little bit better, but we also know we need to work on those as well. And so I just wanted to spend a little time on this slide to let you know that you can make this as purposeful, 2 birds, 1 stone, as you need to when it comes to student achievement. You can do, as we get into this, we can talk about more TEKS-based experiences when you're planning.
And just as a side note, the scores from the previous year, so that was the 22-23 year that she's talking about. The scores from the 21-22 year were a little bit higher than these. So there's a bit of a downward spiral. So another recognition in that we needed to do something different, or they needed to do something different to try to increase mastery and help students learn.
And then we also looked at our achievement gap. So when you look at our African-American population, we have, 55% approaching, our Hispanic population, 57%, and then our white population was 73%. And so this was really important when we were looking at location choice as well, because the whole premise of this is that we are going to them. Alrighty. So the whole reason we wanted to do Shorty Snack and Learn is when I got here, we kind of had a negative stigma about kind of our parents and their involvement. And so I decided, you know what, we're gonna make this fun. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna get them involved. It's gonna be great. And so if they're not coming to the school, there was a lack of participation in our bigger nights. Like we have a STEM night, we have a reading night, and there was a lack of participation across the board. We decided that we wanted to go to them. And so we held kind of a staff meeting and we talked about what this would look like, how we could encourage parents to feel more comfortable coming to the campus when we held events throughout the year. And in the meantime, also raising student achievement, partnering with parents, having that face-to-face interaction, and just building connections. So that way there was overall a more positive partnership across the campus and district.
So when I started teaching, was 1990. So this is my 34th year in education. And I remember very clearly teachers that I worked with, and this was not a bad thing to think. This was just what we thought at the time. Our idea of parental involvement, and that's actually what it was called, parental involvement. It wasn't engagement, it was involvement, was that we had specific things at the school for parents to attend. And in order for parents to be involved in their students' education, they had to cross the threshold of the front door of the campus. And that was how they were involved. What Schulenburg ISD did was realize that that's not what parental engagement is at all. It can be. It can be that you invite people to your campus and have them do various things and see things that their kids have done. It absolutely can be that. But that's not all it is. In moving through this presentation and as we move through as districts and learn and grow, I think what we have to understand is that we have to be willing to accept whatever it is that parental engagement looks like on behalf of the parent. We have to do things to make it easier for them. And that's a hard concept. When you talk to teachers and staff from years ago, and even now still, there is a belief that, if parents wanted to be engaged in their child's education, they would be. And what we know is that we have to set it up so that they can be engaged. And that's what this activity does. It allows them to be engaged outside of the school setting in a place where they feel comfortable, and allows them to be a part of what's going on with their kiddos.
One thing I want to talk about too is how important that face-to-face interaction is. And I feel like, COVID and everything really put a stop to a lot of that. And so people stop feeling welcome. Just seeing the parents, and you'll find out we go to a park in a second, but seeing the parents at a park and being able to talk to them just in a non-threatening, fun way has made our connection to them when we have to make those hard phone calls or have those hard meetings that much easier. Because there's built trust in us from seeing us in their community. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up.
And one more thing, sorry. One of the things that we also know, and you know this from research that you've read and probably in your own districts as well, parent-family engagement does have a huge impact on student scores. And I know that's kind of a dirty word for us to talk about, the test, and it is what it is. But if there is something that we can do like this that boosts achievement with students and helps them learn and helps parents help their students learn, why on earth would we not do it? Why would we not do these kinds of things? Of course, we have all the other things in place that you have in place, the data and the data meetings and the curriculum and disaggregating the numbers and breaking the students apart and doing interventions and all those things, those are all academically driven and of course are significant. This doesn't take the place of that. This is just something else to do that's a whole lot more fun than sitting in front of black and white numbers tearing them apart.
So one big thing was money. We kind of wanted to talk about that. So we actually, this event is so low cost. It was about $50 to $150. Honestly, if you're having a bigger population of students, then it's going to be more money. But the main cost of it was just the snacks for the kids. And so we used our student activity account, but you could easily use title funds.
Yeah. So, you know, when you get a new superintendent, every superintendent knows something different. It's like they have an area of specialty, and mine was instruction and parent family engagement, which was another reason this district was a great fit for me, because they thought the same thing. So the money was not being pulled out of Title I Part A funds. So we know that parent family engagement is part of Title I Part A. Of course, there are guidelines and restrictions on what you can spend your money on and what you can't. But at the time, they were not using Title I money. They were pulling out of their activity account, which was money that they had fundraised, through Color Run and just some other things that they did. So we weren't using that money in the way that we could be using it. So we are doing that now. And of course, we're making sure that we go by the guidelines, and we're not doing anything outside of what we said we were going to do in our district and campus improvement plans. So remember, if you're spending Title I Part A funds, you have to have designated that in your district improvement plan or your campus improvement plan to say that that's one of your goals and an activity or a strategy that you're going to be using. Outside of those plans, this money is not supposed to be spent on anything else. So we made sure that parent family engagement is built into our plans to ensure that we're in compliance as well.
So I don't know about y'all, but when I go to professional development, I really like it to be useful. And so I tried my hardest to make this worth your time. And so I wanted to do these simple steps to help you actually implement this on your campus. And at the end of this, there will be a free resources folder that you can access and copy if you want, whatever we're doing. And so just know that's coming at the end. Yay. So I kind of broke it down as we go into these 4 main parts. And so the first thing you're going to want to do is decide your location and time. Then you're going to want to look at your subject focus and your activity prep, then look at staff involvement, and then advertising it is probably the most important step in all of this. We hyped it up to get people to come out. So that's just a quick little overview. So here are some things that you're going to want to keep in mind when you're deciding on the location and time. So where is a central location for your families? Here in Schulenburg, we have a park. It's called Walters Park, and it is the most well-known place in the city. In August, you might have heard it. It's National Party of Texas. We have bands come down, rodeo. It's a good time.
It's a good time. And Sausage Fest is coming up soon. So we are a town who does lots of stuff like that.
Yes, it's so fun. So Walters Park is actually the spot that we use, and it is surrounded by our targeted audience. It is low income housing around that area, which is interesting to me because it is actually a very nice park and pavilion. But the houses around it are definitely the target audience we're trying to reach.
So in trying to decide the location, of course, transportation is an issue. So you're going to see that this is not during school hours, of course. This is after school. Well, a lot of our kiddos don't have vehicles. So if this was not situated in a place that they could walk to or get to easily, then we wouldn't have had any participation. So in thinking about going out into your community, it may be difficult to find a location like we're blessed that we have this park right in the middle of an area where we know that many of our targeted families live. Try to find somewhere that they can get to. If they don't have the ability to get themselves there, then you may have to build in something with transportation, which we didn't have to do. We didn't have to do because of the location that they were able to find for our Shorty Snack and Learn here.
And keep in mind too, I still have friends in College Station at the school I taught, and they actually replicated this. One of my friends took all of my stuff, and they're doing it on their campus right now. And they actually have 3 different locations they go to at the same time. Like they have a big enough campus and big enough team. And so they are very purposeful about their location as well. So Schulenburg, we're small, we can do one location and it works, but just be thinking about what that might look like for you. Keep in mind weather and Mother Nature. We live in Texas, y'all. Luckily, our pavilion is covered at the park. And so on nasty days, we still could have the event. Bring some paperweights in case the wind is blowing everything away. But for the most part, we haven't really had to cancel. So keep that in mind as well. We've talked about the specific population we're trying to reach from our data. So of course, all families were the goal to connect with. But based on our data and our achievement gap, there were three main populations we wanted to be engaged with. And that was our African American families, our English language learning families, and our economically disadvantaged families. And again, that they were kind of centered around that area. And so it worked out. And then of course, be mindful of the time frame that you're trying to reach your targeted families. You kind of touched on this at the beginning of the presentation, but most of our families have 2 full-time working parents or single parents working full-time. Those are the main for our parents, those are the main people we're trying to reach. And so we wanted to make it after school in a certain period where people could attend. But sometimes, I mean, we have a lot of people working nights here too. So it's really challenging still. We change the time every now and then to try to accommodate different people. It's very rare you'll see the same people show up every time just because of how their work schedules are.
And I think for everybody out there who's listening, you know, this may not be the plan that you use. It may be better for you to do it on a Saturday, or it may be better for you to do it right after school or a little later in the day. You know, one of the things that I'm real big on, and I know that, you know, we're doing it since I got here, and I believe that they did it before, was surveying people and asking them. You know, I will bug the dog out of people to get them to fill out a survey. I mean, we will put it out there on paper, and we'll put it out there on social media and on the website and hand it to them. And we will do all the things. And that makes our job hard in trying to put it all together. But in finding out what works for people, you have to ask them. Don't make any assumptions about what's going to be the best time or the best location. You ask them what works best for them, and then try really hard to accommodate. And one more thing that I'm thinking as Kacy is saying all of this stuff, this is a lot. And this is a process and a procedure that this district has been doing this is the 3rd year. So, you know, there definitely were some struggles, and she's going to talk about those in a minute. I think one of the most, the smartest bit of wisdom that I ever heard was that, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You know, if you aren't able to do all of this at the same time, or it doesn't work out the first time that you try this, if you decide to try it, you know, don't be frustrated or think that, oh, well, I guess we're done. You know, regroup and try again. Take your time and do what you can do, but know that this has to address your own community, and it may look different for you. And that also, I don't think there's any kind of an expectation that you're going to go full force and have it all done exactly right the first time. You know, kind of the fun in this is that it is brand new, and that you are experiencing this with families. And there is something about families watching you figure things out and see that, my gosh, when it starts pouring down rain and it's time to leave and nobody can leave, and you're forced to sing and dance for 30 minutes for everybody, you know, just to see that you're human and that you're a nice person. And that changes the way that they feel about the school, and that changes the way that they feel about the teachers. And we all know that if the parents are bought into what's going on at the school, the kids are going to buy in. And, you know, that's another point of all this is to let them see that we're on their side and they're on ours.
Absolutely. And one last thing too, we did have a Shorty snack and learn in the dark one time. Keep in mind time change whenever you are planning this, if it's in the fall. Oh, it skipped 1 second. I must have hit the wrong button. Okay, so when we are looking at subjects and activities, so of course our math was our targeted area of improvement. So we wanted to start with math. Well, surprise, surprise, math is actually the easiest prep, because who doesn't love math games? I mean, you're probably doing this in your classrooms every day with stations, and you probably already have most of it already made. And so we wanted to start with math. And how we organized it was by grade level. So then after math, we decided, let's try reading. And we kind of did the same thing with reading games and activities by grade level. And then after that, we were like, okay, let's do science. And this one is by far the most prep with the highest engagement, but it is also the higher cost. And so we're going to break down each of these subjects into what this may look like. So for math, the easiest go-to to practice is math fact fluency. And our teachers are all for it because they want their kids to learn their facts. And there's so many different games that you can play with them. And like I said, when I tell you the stations are organized by grade level, I actually had bins like for each grade level with about 5 games in each bin. And so there would be a table and it would have the variety of grade level games. And when the kids show up, they just go to their table and there's a lead teacher there. They are TEKS based. And so not all of them would be math fact fluency. We would have some with, you know, very variety. Like you can kind of tell in that picture at the bottom, there's base 10 blocks matching. And then we would have, you know, Jenga, where they would practice some different skills. I have a fantastic math interventionist. I don't know if you do. I don't know if you do, but she actually prepped most of these games for me and she already had them ready. And so you probably have them ready as well. You just got to put them in buckets. The pop it game at the bottom, they would roll or pull a card and they would have to pop 1-to-1 correspondence, that number. And then we have, you know, math squares in this top corner where they're practicing their math facts. And so one of the things we've talked about for the future is doing themes. And so you could do, you know, dice only, cards only, or if there's a specific TEK that your campus is struggling with, you could be more focused on that, such as fractions. But math is always fun and it is the easiest because the kids can have a good time playing the games and they're focused. Reading, you want to talk about that?
I do.
Go ahead.
Real quick. So I know you noticed that the 3 subject areas that we're covering are the tested subjects on the campus. One of the things that we've not done that we will do moving forward, you know, as you do this, you learn new things and figure out ways to make it more effective. And I think Kacy said it best at the beginning when she said, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We're absolutely trying to develop relationships with the parents and we're absolutely trying to gain mastery for our students. And we think that we can accomplish both of those things with this program. Also notice that these are real simple things. So parents are good at flashcards and they're really good at dice and they're good at holding things up to kids and playing games with them. So in the future, we want to move toward analysis of our data, finding specific low TEKs and targeting those TEKs by providing cute little fun activities that parents can do at home that will reinforce what it is that we're doing at school. We're never asking parents to teach a lesson. This is not a lesson. This is not going out and a teacher standing in front of kids just in a different location, teaching a lesson. This is about reinforcing skills that we already know are issues or just things we need to practice on. But moving forward, we plan to analyze our data a little more carefully and really make it work for us and encourage parents to do those things at home. You know, another thing that I have mentioned to Kacy, I think I've mentioned it to Kacy. I'm to the age now that sometimes I think I do things and I just thought about it, but I didn't actually do it, is creating ready-made packets for parents to take with them. You know, I know that some of the adoptions that we used to have through different grade levels at school and some of the subjects would have the kid packets that they could take home. And it was like the cards they could tear apart and put in little plastic bags. In encouraging parents to do these things with their kids at home, if we can provide them with those materials ahead of time or just allow them to take what they're playing with at their location, of course, that would encourage them to do it if they don't have to make it when they get there. And again, that's more work on us, but the outcome for that will be for the kids. And the bottom line is that we're trying to do something good for kids.
Absolutely. That is actually something we're looking at is doing make and takes in the future. And it's really just to show, like in that bottom picture, you can see that parents watching them play Jenga. She was having a good time, but it's really just to show them how easy it is to practice these skills with their kids at home. And it can be fun. So that's math for you. That's an easy one to start with.
And that even a game can be a learning experience. It doesn't have to be some big fancy computer program or even out of a textbook or a workbook, that it can be something as simple as playing Jenga, and that there are certain things that your kids are going to learn that are going to help them in school.
So reading is a little bit more challenging. Of course, we started doing task cards again. And the reason reading is more challenging for at least our third through fifth graders is because it requires more concentration, and you're at a park and there's music playing and there's people coming and going, and it was a lot. And so that first year we tried to do like reading comprehension passages and just, you know, doing that kind of stuff. And that was a struggle because the kids weren't really getting anything out of it. We were like, okay, we got to revamp this. And so if you look at some of the teak-based games that we have, pre-K through second is great. So you can see the little kid in the corner, he's got a fidget spinner and he's identifying letters until the fidget spinner stops. On the bottom, you have kids playing, CBC words, where they roll and they have to read the word and they can go again. Super easy. And then you can look over, sorry, I have to move our box. Over here on this side, they have some different comprehension passages that are smaller, that they're working with their parents. And so actually on this bottom corner, there was one time where we had junior high come. And so this is something that we can look at for the future as well, but this can also be a district-wide thing. Junior high came and they got to participate with us during our reading time. Some future ideas, if you want to start small, reading in the park, bring a book, bring a blanket and sit and read with your parent or sit and read, with a friend. That would be so much fun. And we wanted to do that this year. Weather got in the way, but we wanted to do it this year. And then genre specific, doing poetry, fiction, and then of course, real life, you could bring in newspapers. Schulenburg has the Schulenburg sticker is our community newspaper. And so it would be kind of fun to just bring those newspapers and magazines down and have the kids do activities with those. And so, like I said, reading's a little bit more difficult to plan. But one of the things, 3 through 5, inferencing task cards, doing it more, not so much reading, but more skills based is kind of the way to go. If you did inferencing with your 3rd through 5th graders, or retell and paraphrase a story, more of an informal reading activity for them.
And we know that statewide, those are low teaks. Those are things that kids struggle with, even when you have absolute direct teach in the classroom over and over and over again. So again, reinforcing what's going on in the classroom. In a few minutes, Kacy's going to talk about participation, and getting people from the school to buy in to be a part of what's going on. One of the quickest ways to get teachers to want to participate is when they see the good outcomes. So if you are doing things that are related to lessons that they're teaching in the classroom, again, not a lesson, but just information that reinforces what they're doing in the room, then the likelihood of them wanting to come out and be a part of that, because they're going to reap the benefits. So that's a big thing to think about. Reading is a part of everything. And I know a lot of the stuff I'm saying, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I know that I've been teaching for 55 years. I know you know, but I think it's a good reminder that reading is the basis of it all. It is the basis of it all. So even introduction of other areas into our reading games or our reading fun activities at Shorty Snack and Learn, having it be something that's historically based, or talking about the different genres, or looking at science through the reading lens. Just different ways to approach it that is not exactly the same way that they're doing it in the classroom.
And then we have science, and science is a lot to prep, but it is so much fun, y'all. Last year, our theme was things that pop. And so it was focusing on states of matter. We had, and I'll show you some videos in a second, but we had like elephant toothpaste over here. You can see the kids are experimenting with lemons and food dye and baking soda. It makes it fizzy and crazy. So just so you know. But here's our elephant toothpaste here. Pretty much anything that made a mess we had at the park that day. I'm sure they love the cleanup after that.
What is elephant toothpaste?
Elephant toothpaste is when I'm not sure because my lead teacher did it. But
can we Google it, Kacy? Can we Google elephant toothpaste?
Right
not right now. No, not right now.
Yeah, we
can I Google it? You're not going to Google it.
Yes, it just explodes out of the graduated cylinder, and the kids' expressions are great. You actually will see it on the next slide. And then we, of course, have soda bottles that are showing the solid liquid gas and the balloon blows up. And of course, we had floats, ice cream, the fizziness, the bubbles, the gas. It was just a lot of fun. And so this year, our theme, it's actually the day before Science Star. We are going to be doing Star in Space. And so we literally had our meeting yesterday to plan what this is going to look like. I had about 10 teachers come, which is super exciting. And so they all want to come to this one. It's a fun time. As you can tell, the population of people who came, it's a packed park. It does involve some planning meetings. If you have someone who's organized, they can make it easier by making it pretty and buying all the supplies needed, and then telling your teachers, hey, come from this time to this time, here's your activity. That's at least how I do it, to keep it off my teachers and just kind of prep as much as I can to make it easy. And then we also, the first one we did, the snacks were integrated. So for example, they would have a cookie experiment where they had a Chips Ahoy, an Oreo, and a Nilla wafer, and they had to, time how long it would take for it to sink and kind of practice that process. We also, of course, have Moon Oreos and different things like that that actually include food in them. So I'm really excited about this year. Here are some super fun videos of this. One's a bottle rocket. It goes really high. It's kind of crazy. And then, of course, the elephant toothpaste. It just keeps going. It doesn't explode. Sorry, I kind of was dramatic about that. It's like a slow,
it is,
but it keeps going.
It does.
So she was able to replicate that. She was the teacher demonstration table, and she could replicate that about 2 or 3 times.
So you see that this isn't anything that's fancy. This isn't something that, like, we went out and bought some prepackaged something that was $2,000 that we're going to have to repurchase every year. This is baking soda and vinegar and food coloring. Those may be the 3 cheapest items in the stores right now. There's nothing fancy about this. This is just, man, this is probably something we did in the 90s. This was this, back in the day when you had a chalkboard. I think that that's a significant piece to recognize in all this. So many of the ideas and the things that we try to do, we end up not being able to do because it costs too much. This doesn't cost too much. I mean, we are not a district who has money. We are not a district who has money. And, the teachers have come up, and Kacy has come up with creative ways to teach very significant pieces of information that our kids need to know. So nothing fancy at all about this, just some good old fashioned coming up with some cute ideas. And I would venture to guess that Google really is the best friend. You can find just about anything on the internet. One more thing, and Pinterest, yes. We don't use teacher-made teachers, teacher-paced teachers for TEKS lessons or instruction in the classroom, but, certainly getting some ideas from there as well. And another thing is that a lot of teachers will already have this stuff put together in their classrooms. Teachers, upper grade level teachers who are doing these kinds of activities may even have a packet put together already. Or I remember when I was a classroom teacher, I had bins that would just have all the materials that I needed for certain activities. Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't reinvent the wheel. Share with one another and talk to your teachers and see what's already on campus. Even reach out to us. Listen, I'm going to tell you, somebody just stepped in to take a picture, so we're fixing to smile real big. Take it, Christy. Oh, it didn't take. Sorry. Christy knows she has to take several because we have to use the one I look best in.
Are you looking at the camera?
I'm looking at Christy. Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And listen, in full disclosure, Christy, Kacy and I are sitting on books because we wanted to be taller. So could you please crop that piece out if you see it?
Oh my.
But again, about the activities, really, this is not anything fancy. This is just good old teaching. This is just good fun. And, I think one of the things that we have maybe forgotten is that learning really can be fun. Kids really are learning stuff when they're out in the park with their parents doing these activities with teachers. They're learning things.
And even getting experiences. That's a big part for our population, just experiencing this. I know as a kid, I had my own baking soda vinegar science experiment kit, like a lab kit. A lot of our kids probably don't have that. And so just providing these experiences for them to have. Okay, so now let's get into the nitty gritty stuff. So staff sign up. I am obsessed with Google. I use everything with Google. It is so easy to have everyone edit it. I would encourage you to utilize Google. I would literally just put on prepping snacks. And then if someone wanted to do that right after school, thank you so much for helping. And then if you wanted to come, you got to ride our bus. Now, we are unique in the fact that in small districts, everyone has 3 or 4 jobs. And so
unique is a great word to use there. Unique.
So our principal was actually a bus driver. And she was able to be Miss Frizzle and take us and all the teachers over to the park to kind of have a little staff bonding moment. And so you do not by any means have to do that or get a bus. But that was kind of where we started this whole thing, was let's all get on a bus and go. And so that's kind of what that looks like on the staff end for when I'm getting people to sign up.
I will let you know they've not asked me to drive a bus. I have no idea why. Why could that be? No one's asked me to drive a bus.
And here are some of the jobs that we would have. And so, of course, we had our bus driver. You do not need that. But each table had a teacher or two to engage in learning activities with the kids and parents. And so, of course, they would teach the parent kind of how to play, and then they would back off and then let the parent play with their kid and go find someone else to assist. And so be thinking about that, especially for science. You're going to want to have a lead teacher at every table for every grade level. We had snack guards because, believe it or not, kids will just keep going back. Okay, they love snacks. They're gonna take all your snacks. So make sure you have some snack guards there. At the end, if we have extras, we always hand them out. We're like, take them home, eat them later. Of course, a photographer to document all of the awesome things that are going on. And then I was the personal DJ. I brought a boombox because I'm obnoxious like that. You're gonna learn that about me. And so I would just put it on a table and have Kids Bop playing, and the kids absolutely loved it. So those are just a few of the jobs that came to mind when I was thinking through what you would need to have this be successful. So the snacks, do whatever you can that is easiest ahead of time. And so when we did things that pop, we did the soda floats, and we also did popcorn because that was so easy. When the food is part of the rotation, it takes a little bit more planning on your part for how much you would need, because you're going to want to estimate how many people you think are going to come. It's really difficult. You'll find out one of the roadblocks we ran into is nobody came the first time, like maybe 2 people. And so we had all these snacks. Well, it went into the teacher's lounge the next day. They had a great time. But and then keep in mind, you can make it seasonal. So of course, hot chocolate in the winter, candy corn mixes for, Halloween time, and then spring snack mixes. So just make it fun. Whatever it is, that is what gets the kids there. Let me tell you, when it is Shorty Snack and Learn time, they come up to me and ask what the snack is. It's not what games are we playing. It is, what are we going to eat? And so just make sure it's kid friendly and they're excited about it. That's what gets them out there. So we're into the advertising it part. And so these are some different flyers that I've made from year to year. Notice the bus theme. Yours could be completely different. But if you look at kind of the times, we have one in Spanish. So life hack, you can print front and back, front English, back Spanish, and really to try to reach our EL families. And so I made sure on the bottom of the flyer each time this little quote was on there. I kind of found it from an article online, but it says children are more successful in school when parents or guardians are involved in their child's education. Please come with your child and learn with us. So I think that was really important to get parents to understand why we were doing this, because we want you there. And so I made sure I was strategic about putting that on the flyer where they could see it.
So let me say something here. So one of the things that I love about this is that this district was targeting a need before they even realized that it was a need. I mentioned a few minutes ago that I'm big on surveys. So of course I have surveyed multiple times since I've been here. When I first got here, I did, and then I did something over the summer and then something in the fall, and have just recently sent out a parent and family survey. And actually it specifically referenced parent family engagement. And one of the things that I found through the data was that parents, and this is actually some survey data that I had found in 2 other districts as well. So that's kind of interesting. Parents love coming to the campus and seeing things hung on the wall that their kids have drawn. And they love coming to music programs and watching their kids sing on stage. And they love coming to a book fair and buying everything but books, those things that stick on the ceiling and never ever come off, and those big pencils, and they love all that. They love coming for Christmas and walking around and looking at all the decorations. But you know what they want? What the people here wanted, what the parents here wanted, was to learn how to help their kids. They wanted to know academic things to help with homework. Of course, math was referenced multiple times, the new math, except I'm not really even sure it's new anymore. How can we help our kids? And, parents even said things like, I love coming to music programs, but what I really need is for you to tell me some things I can do at home to support my child's education. What can I do at home? So the district had not done a survey like this before, but I guess in just knowing the families and in a recognition of a need period, they started Shorty Snack and Learn. So that quote absolutely goes hand in hand. Children are more successful in school when parents or guardians are involved or engaged. And the way that they can be engaged doesn't have to be at the school. It can be at home. It can be at home too. And that's what Shorty Snack and Learn does. It takes them in their neighborhood, shows them some things that they can do at home with their kids. Doesn't require them to come out. Doesn't require them to come out.
Yeah, one of the things we did was strategic placement of flyers. So, and again, it goes back to knowing your families. Where do your families go? So we have a washateria in town. We made sure we stopped there and put a flyer there. All the gas stations we have on every corner, they love having our flyers and they'll keep them right there on the front counter. And so being strategic about where you're putting your flyers and of course sending them home. I have noticed that the day of Shorty Snack and Learn, I send a little palm size flyer home with the kids as an immediate reminder when they get home of, oh, we got to go to this, we got to go. And so it might be a little trick, but it works every time because anytime I do that, we get more families involved on that event. And so that's kind of what we did with the flyers. We do have a banner. We got a banner made. And I put it in the hall whenever we have the day, it's up and the kids know that after school, it's Shorty Snack and Learn at Walters Park. It's kind of a visual reminder for them. Social media stories, that's the 24-hour story you can do. I send that as a reminder to parents the day of, so I'm not just blasting their Facebook feed with the same flyer over and over, but they can click the story to get a reminder. And then as you see our very well parked bus in the parking lot, we take up as much space as possible so that way people know that that's where it's really hard to miss that bus with that banner and everyone knows that it's Shorty Snack and Learn. One of the things we have at the location where we actually plan this is a Boys and Girls Club. And this was after school program for some of our kids. And actually a lot of our population we were wanting to target goes to Boys and Girls Club. We would send a flyer to them and we would invite them over and the counselors would bring all the kids out and they would come play with us. Now the parents weren't there, but it was still great just to see the kids in a different setting. And so community partnerships are a huge thing.
So that would be Boys and Girls Club is an organization that does after school care for students so that they're not having to go home by themselves. It's relatively inexpensive. I had never heard of it before. We've never had one of those in any of the communities where I've worked. And although the parents, as Kacy said, although the parents aren't there, they're working. They're working or doing whatever it is they're trying to do to support their families. So they couldn't be there, but the Boys and Girls Club people will bring the kids over. So it may not hit the parent-family engagement piece. The parents may not be there getting the knowledge and learning how to do those things at home, but the kids are getting the benefit of it because the Boys and Girls Club is willing to walk over and let them participate. So that was another reason that Walters Park is a great location for us, is because we knew that even students who weren't housed in that area, those parents who were taking advantage of that service after school, those kids would be able to participate as well.
That bottom quote is just, if I had to sum up advertising it in one quote, it would be kids go where there is excitement. So be obnoxious about it, be in the halls talking about it. That's probably, and even with teachers too, if you're an administrator who's wanting to increase teacher involvement, if you're excited about it, they're going to be excited about it. And so modeling that and getting everyone pumped so that way they show up, that was a huge key to it. Okay, so let's talk about some struggles and some roadblocks we ran into when we were planning this. So the first time when I tell you there were like 2 people that showed up, I'm not joking. There were 2 people that showed up and I was like, okay, you know what? That's a hit. We're going to keep it going. And after that, a lot of the teachers were like, well, what? Like, only 2 people showed up. We don't want to do this anymore. And I was like, no, we're going to do it again. We're going to keep going. And sure enough, at the reading one, we had more. And then by the science one that same year, we had like this turnout. And so one of the struggles we did have were some students would show up without parent supervision.
So this is not talking about the Boys and Girls Club.
Yes.
This is talking about kids who are walking in from their homes, which are close enough to walk over.
Yes.
But parents weren't with them for whatever reason.
Yes. And so that happens every time. And you have to we talked about it as a team. You have to kind of decide, like, would you allow it or do you send them back home because they don't have a parent? Well, obviously we're going to allow it because we would rather them be with us learning than doing God knows what else, on the streets of Schulenburg. And so, we would always be welcoming. They would come get a snack and a drink and sit with the teacher and get to work and, play games. And so you'll have to discuss what that would look like for your campus. At the end of it, the first couple times we would have to call the parents and be like, hey, we're about to leave your kid at the park. Like, is this okay? And surprisingly, most of the time it is. I'm just saying, even if they're like, 7 or 8 years old, it's usually, yeah, they're good. Just leave them. And I'm like, okay. So you might run into that. And then we,
So I think too, what Kacy said about giving the kids something to do after school, that's a pretty significant piece too. We're located right off of I-10, so we are on the corridor between San Antonio and Houston. And I will tell you, while there may not be a whole lot of crime just distinctly within the community, within the city limits, there is. And we have students who are in trouble. And, we are a district who does random drug testing frequently and dog searches frequently. And, sometimes we find things. So I think allowing our students to have a good outlet of something that they can do outside of school hours so that they're not getting in trouble. It's shocking, but there are even elementary students that find themselves involved in situations that are not situations that we want our kids involved in. So, one more benefit of this is, even if it's just for one afternoon, every other marking period or every marking period, allowing them to have something to do that is going to keep them out of trouble.
And can I tell you, the kids that are falling into that pattern of trouble, they show up every time without a parent, but they show up and they're excited to be there. And so I would encourage y'all to really think about that. Staff involvement can be a roadblock sometimes. As long as you stay excited about it, they're eventually going to get excited about it again. But when I think I had me, my counselor, and one other teacher with us one time, and we were able to run it. And so don't let that be a roadblock. It is exciting when you get more people involved. We would, bribery with jeans passes and drinks and all the fun stuff. And that's why I was so excited, because yesterday we had our meeting to plan science and I had 10 teachers. That's awesome. I'll take that any day. But just know it is a struggle and a roadblock, but this can be done with 2 or 3 people.
And I think the recognition of the classroom teachers that even though this is a fun activity and it is going to take some time away from whatever they had planned for that afternoon, it is going to support them in the classroom. What I have found out is that a lot of times when people don't have buy-in, it's because they don't understand what it's going to do for them. And I don't think that that's a selfish comment. I think that that's just human nature. If they need to be spinning their wheels in their classroom, putting a lesson together, and you're asking them to come out to the park and do a lesson, what's going to be more beneficial to them? That's what they're going to want to do. What I have found is that many, many times, once people understand and see what it's going to do for their kids, that they do want to participate. There are not that many teachers on this campus, 22.
Yeah.
22 teachers. So we're looking at half the staff showed up for a meeting yesterday. That's a big deal. And it's because they understand not only is it significant for the kids and the parents, but it's also helping them out in their classrooms.
Mm-hmm. So some things we learned to help save you some of the fails that we had. The first time we did this, we made the event an hour. Because most of the events we have on our campus are about an hour. So we made it an hour. That was so long. Do not do that. It was too long. The kids after school are done. They usually just stay for about 30 minutes and then they're running around like crazy. And you're like, someone's going to get hurt. So shorten it. Now we do 30 minutes. And 30 minutes seems to be like the sweet spot of time where they are still actively engaged, and that leaves them wanting more. But we're out. We're cleaning up and we're out. Next time, guys, come out next time. And so for the teachers, it takes about 45 minutes for them to volunteer. It's about 45 minutes of time between driving there, setting up, cleaning up, coming back. And so it's so quick and easy to implement. And then, of course, allowing kids to visit different grade level tables. So I think what we really struggled with is because we have kids on so many different levels, especially when it comes to reading. We had some 5th graders who wanted to go work with some pre-Kers, and for 15 minutes, they'd be at the 5th grade table and then they would be done with the activities. Well, go see 4th grade, go see 3rd grade. We try to keep it at least the first 20 minutes separated by grade level, so they're getting exposure to whatever TEKS they're needing in their grade level. But then after that, if they've finished all of the activities, then they can start wandering and helping other students or visiting with other students and trying different games in different areas. And again, I mean, sometimes we would have special education students show up. Well, they're not on that 5th grade level. So it would be okay for them to go sit at a 3rd grade level and practice the skills that they have that they need to work on. And then of course, making it a district-wide opportunity. I kind of mentioned that we had our junior high join us for the reading day. It was a lot of fun, and the little kids, they're all related to the junior high kids. So it was kind of a 2 birds, 1 stone again, where we were able to get 2 campuses involved, and their parents involved at one event. And it didn't take very much. I just invited them. I said, hey, if y'all want to come to Shorty Snack and Learn, just prep something, bring it out. We have snacks. And they showed up and joined, and it was great. So keeping that in mind too, if you have a partner campus that you want to do this with.
And for those of you who are district level administrators or even campus administrators who are looking at ways to increase your CTE funding, there's the instructional practices class. I think that's what it's called. That is allows our high school kids to, earn some allows the school to get some points, some CCMR points, and also allows them to be able to participate in things like this on an instructional classroom type level. So again, plans for the future and learning from what we've done in the past, having high school kids come and participate. Little kids want to be around the high school kids. And my goodness, you put some sort of an athletic jersey on those students, or you let them wear their FFA jacket around here, and man, they have the undivided attention of everybody. So just in thinking of ways to increase support, get more kids out, and involve as many people as possible, look at how you can involve some of your CTE classes at the high school level and let them participate as well.
So I blew this picture up because I wanted to kind of show that targeted audience. And if you look, we have, our African-American families are there, our Hispanic families are there. And so I didn't do sign-in sheets. This is something in the future that we're going to be doing, so we can actually look at the data behind how successful this is. But this is by far one of my favorite pictures because it does show that it has been successful, at least when it comes to that parent and family engagement. And then, so here are some of our results. So our campus engagement actually improved during school events. So our STEM night, we had the biggest turnout that I think had ever happened. It was my first year at the campus, and so I'm not sure what it was previously, but the principal at that time told me that we had a huge turnout of families. The relationships between parents and school became more positive. I was able to make phone calls easier to parents because I knew that they knew I cared about their kid. I saw them at the park, and now, hey, by the way, target audience was reached. And then
building capacity with parents. I didn't know where you were going with that. I was trying to think what I was going to say. Building capacity with parents. So that's kind of something that I've touched on several times. Simple ideas can lead to teachable moments. That in very simple little bitty things that parents don't even realize. I used to laugh when I was a 4th grade reading teacher. That's where I spent most of my career when I was in the classroom, and parents would say stuff like, well, I have him read the cereal box at breakfast. And, at the time I kind of giggled to myself and I thought, oh, well, okay. But you know what? That really was a teachable moment. Those parents knew more about it than I did. So letting them see that very simple things can turn into great learning activities. That's just such a big thing. What the research tells us is that as kids get older, if parents don't see significance in their participation, if they don't know why it is that they're doing it, or they don't see a change in the outcome, that they don't want to participate. At junior high, they say if you're going to bring parents in for something or do an activity with parents, make sure you give them some sort of a job to do so that they'll feel like what they're doing is meaningful. And I think it's the same with this. They want to know that when they're flashing those cards, that there's something good going on behind it at school, or making elephant toothpaste, or whatever it is, that it actually is beneficial to the kids. I will tell you though, of the things that are listed, I think that the relationship between parents and the school becoming more positive. To me, that is the one outcome that changes everything. I come from a family of educators. I'm a 4th generation educator. So never was there a time that my parents or my grandparents felt afraid to walk in the school door, or felt afraid to call a teacher or felt afraid to contact an administrator. Not that I talked too much in the classroom and they would ever have had to have done anything like that, but they never worried about that. They weren't concerned with that. What this situation does, what Shorty Snack and Learn does, is it allows parents to see the administrators and the staff as just regular old people. Because you know what we are? We are regular old people. Sometimes we may be grumpy and not respond in the way that we need to, and sometimes they might be grumpy too. But allowing them to see us out there having fun and having a good time with their kids. And, even people who don't parent the way that we think that they should parent, and we don't agree with the way that they do things, they even believe that what they're doing is what's best for their kid. They believe that screaming and hollering is what they need to do. They're trying to parent their kid. We don't have to agree with it. But what that does is it allows them to see us as real people and know more about them, understand them better. I have said a million times, when you're having a difficult time with a student at school and you finally get to meet the parent, very often you know exactly why that student is experiencing the problems that they're experiencing because of what's going on at home, because of the parenting style. So this allows us to get to know them and allows them to get to know us, and just puts us on a different kind of footing. I think it makes them see that we care. Everybody wants to know that you care about their kid. And this is one of those things. It's outside the school day. It is extra time. It requires some work. It's a volunteer basis. And putting that information out there to parents to let them know that these people chose to be out at Walters Park to do this with their kids makes more of a difference than I ever would have anticipated. And it cost $150.
So in the future, what we're planning on doing is, of course, continuing to build and improving this event, as we've talked about in the presentation. But I would love to start beginning to collect data to gauge the effectiveness of this. Of course, with our STAR scores and stuff, if that continues to rise, then I'm going to say that plays a part in it. But doing sign-in sheets and then specifically hitting those TEKs we talked about, just to see how much of a difference this actually makes in our students. And so those are our future plans for Shorty Snack and Learn.
So like from an academic standpoint too, we are moving in toward teacher incentive allotment for next year. And, there are specific, points in the school year where you have to gather data. And the type of screener that we're using is one that is going to show effectiveness of classroom teachers, because you have to align your scores with, what's going on in the classroom. But for us to be able to see individual students where they are, and then the activities that we're doing and the things that we do, and show the effects that those are having on what it is that the kids are learning. Are they learning? Is this making a difference? This is absolutely an activity that has all kinds of benefits beyond the social piece and the emotional piece. Again, we want there to be an academic outcome. So looking very specifically at the data and breaking it apart and trying to figure out what we can do for our different subpopulations of students to have them in a more level playing field with our other populations. Taking a clear stand and painting a picture of where it is that we are, and being honest with ourselves, and seeing that we need to learn and grow, and knowing that we are already doing the data piece and we're already doing the curriculum. We're already doing all those things. So parent-family engagement is the thing that's going to push us over the top. And I've experienced that in other districts as well. So I know that it can happen. And I believe that this is one of the activities at the elementary that's going to do it for them, do it for us.
Well, do we have any questions? I don't know if we do or not. I'm not in charge of the chat box.
Matthew, do we have anything we need to answer?
We do. So I have a couple of questions. I've also asked our audience to be prepared with their questions. So I'm going to let them go first, and then I'll ask any of the questions that are popped into the chat. So is it Kaylee? I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yes, you got it. It's Kaylee.
Okay, go ahead, Kaylee.
Hi, thank you for your presentation today. My question is, how do you go about translating your activities, or that way parents can replicate it? In my district, we only have 5 people across the entire district who speak Spanish, and we can't be at all the tables at one time. So how do you handle that?
So so of course for math, it's a little easier because of course you're dealing with numbers, and you've noticed that in our population of students here who don't speak English, they're usually stronger with math. But we actually are blessed. We have 3 teachers on our campus who speak Spanish, and they usually come to every event. And so they kind of split that and go, and I purposefully am like, hey, what do I have to do to get you to come? Because I know that those families are going to be coming. So I would say that might look different for your school, but for us, we have enough translators that we can have them go around. And then there's also the fact that some of the kids, most of our kids are mixed and they can speak English. And so if you teach the kid, it's kind of neat because then they are actually teaching their parent like how to play or how to read. And that's a neat interaction to actually see. But I hope I answered your question.
I think having students from other campuses come down, high school students who are bilingual, with our population of students, we have many, many students who speak both Spanish and English. So using the resources that you have, coming up with creative ways, and I think allowing students to participate in that is a great way to do it. And I also have always loved the students teaching their parents things. Many of our non-speaking English parents, they're not going to learn English. They don't feel the need and they don't want to. So we're not pushing that, but what we are doing is pushing their ability to understand everything in the same way that everybody else does. So whether it's written translation or having somebody on the phone, we also have, like, our athletic director is bilingual, and we just have a lot of people throughout the district. So that's a big blessing for us that we have people who can come in and do that. But I would just suggest that, maybe even put in a call out to the community. Community involvement is one of the pieces of this that is not recognized or pushed as much. Our community involvement stems a lot from Boys and Girls Club, and then, people in the community allowing us to advertise and helping us get people there. But maybe there's somebody in your town who would like to participate and can help you with that.
Thank you so much. That was awesome.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else have a question? You are free to raise your hand and unmute. All right, Randy, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I did see a question in the chat earlier from my district, actually. Our parent liaisons are paid hourly. So sometimes when we're like off of campus, maybe for 6 hours on that Saturday, we're trying to kind of, how do we regain that time on campus Monday through Friday? But also, like, yeah, just kind of the logistics of that part. Like, when we do have hourly employees, how do you guys manage that?
We don't have any parent liaisons, so we are all the parent liaisons. There are certainly legal ramifications for requiring people, and you're not supposed to require them if they're hourly. That would be something you'd have to speak to your district about and make sure that you have the right legal advice on how to handle a situation like that. If they're volunteering their time and they choose to volunteer their time, then that's volunteer time. You are not supposed to require somebody who is hourly to work outside of their 40 hours a week. I know that there are very creative ways to ensure that people are not working over 40 hours a week, but I would think that would be something that you would want to talk to your superintendent about, or talk to somebody who can give you some legal guidance on a situation like that. We in this district, we're all the parent liaisons. We're all doing it, and typically we don't have our paraprofessionals would be our people who are not contracted and have a specific number of hours that they're able to work per week. When they've just participated of their own fruition, and it wasn't that they were required at all. They just chose to do it. So for us, that wasn't an issue. So I'm afraid I don't really have a good answer for that.
No, I really appreciate it, though. It was good direction. So.
All right, does anybody else? There we go. Nora, go ahead.
You might have mentioned this in the chat or in conversation, but how often did you say that you do this?
we do this 3 times a year. So we try to do a fall, a winter, and then a spring. We do it 3 times a year, and each time we have the different subjects, the math, reading, and science.
It's kind, sorry. So it's kind of like doing a reading night, math night on, or like we do it at campuses, but this, you just go out to them instead.
Yes,
Yes.
it's an additional activity that we do, because we do have our STEM night and our reading night. But we do this additional.
Yeah, so this is not a replacement for things that we're doing on the
Right.
campus. We're wanting to provide those opportunities at as many places as we possibly can. So we
Okay.
have continued to have the traditional parental engagement, family engagement activities on the campus, but this is an extra opportunity to go out into the community and meet people where they are.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Don't be shy. They're very, very nice people.
It's early, Matthew. It's only 10:14.
All right, while we wait for somebody to pose a question, do you have, one of the questions was, do you have 3 different events, or are all 3 subjects presented at one event?
3 different events. It is 3 different events. And the beautiful thing about that is when you have math, once a year, and you could do just one subject 3 times a year. I mean, it really is whatever you need for your campus. But the beautiful part about that is once you prep the subject, science is really the only main one that changes year to year. You could reuse that math because those kids are going to that next grade level and they can do those next TEKs the following year. So I would encourage you to start with math and, play around with it and figure out what works for you.
And I think understanding that time is pretty critical. We all know that the attention span of students, especially after hours, is not going to be an hour. We don't have enough time to do 3 different activities and hold their attention. We're wanting our time with them to be very specific and, very goal oriented and purposeful in what we're doing. So in determining what it is that we want to do, we want to make sure that we've got just enough to keep their attention and teach them something and involve the families, and then we're going home.
All right, Katie,
Hi.
go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, hi, I have a question. So I know you guys are doing this after school. Do you do it, like how long do you wait after school until you do your, until you guys do this? Like, do y'all wait until, like, typically our parents get off like at 5:30? Do y'all wait until 5:30, or what's the time frame?
So we have done different time frames. So we did a 5 to 5:30, because that's usually 10's parents right after work can come to the park. But this one coming up, we're doing 4:45 to 5:15. We don't get, our contract time ends at 4. And so we are, prepping snack at 4 o'clock. And by the time 4:45 or 4:30 is when we leave from the school. By the time that comes around, it kind of all is a very smooth transition. And I would just encourage you to survey your parents. We had a pretty wide variety of parents doing different jobs. And so we've done 5 to 5:30. We've actually done 5:30 to 6. And we tend to change it and just advertise it and make sure it's well known what time we're going to be there.
And I think every community probably has a magic hour. I think that is a big piece, that there's not a whole lot to say about it, but timing really is everything. If you are not doing it at a time that works for them, then you might as well not do it, because they're not going to be able to come. So I think the whole surveying the parents and finding out, and understanding too that no matter how big you smile and no matter how hard you work, there are always going to be people who are dissatisfied with what it is that you're doing. There are always
Right,
going to be people
we have a small community too. We are very stretched out. I'm in Santa Fe, Texas. It's very, and we have a very opinionated small community. That's kind of what I was asking, because I'm like, we're never going to be right. But I love the idea, guys. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
All right, Sharon Mosley, go ahead.
Well, hi, Sharon Mosley.
Well, hello, ma'am. How are you?
I'm good.
You know everybody.
Hey, how big is Schulenburg?
We have about 2,200 people
Like total?
in the community, and right now our campus number is 693.
Okay, and y'all do all of your campuses at one time, like elementary, junior high, and high school?
We've combined elementary and junior high one time. We've just done that one time, but in moving forward, we're trying to come up with ways to have even high school students participate in the activity so that there is involvement across the whole district.
Awesome. I love the idea. I just wanted to let you know we're here watching you too.
Well, hello. Hi, beautiful friends.
All right, as we wait on somebody else, the next question was, how are you bridging the gap between student and family populations and the district staff to ensure that all populations are culturally responsive and supported in these activities?
Well, certainly we do all the typical professional development and talk to our staff members about appropriateness and things that we need to do a certain way or differently based on who it is that our audience is. You know, I think one of the misconceptions about cultural sensitivity is saying that everybody is just alike, because everybody is not just alike. That is cultural insensitivity. Understanding that parents come to you with beliefs based on their culture and their experiences, and knowing that they're going to respond to you based on those things, just like you respond to them based on those things, is pretty key. Because of the cultural makeup of the community, I have to say, and because many of our teachers are born here, raised here, maybe went off and taught for a while, but have come back, you know, I think that there's probably a clearer understanding, or a better understanding maybe, of our student population, our family population, than some communities may have. But, you know, certainly understanding that students who come from poverty learn in a different way, and they need to have the same high expectations that everybody else does. You know, our expectations are high district wide. We're not lowering expectations for anybody. However, we do understand sometimes where it is that they come from. But I think that was a long answer to say that's just something that you have to talk about. You know, I'm a believer in just putting it out there and sharing it. And, you know, if you have, if you witness difficult situations with parents, or if you're receiving phone calls regarding, you know, she made me feel this, and, you know, I'm a counselor, so I know nobody can make you feel anything, but that's the phrase that people will use. I think you hit it head on and talk about it. I think you ensure that your staff understands the differences in everybody, and you make sure that we are respectful. But with the same token, we require respect to be shown to us as well. But you know, when you're respectful of others, oftentimes they're respectful of you too. So just ensuring that everybody's on the same page and that they've had the appropriate training. You know, I used to think, before I was a superintendent, I used to think how ridiculous some of that training was that we have to do before school starts every single year, or that we do throughout the year. And, you know, now I have a better understanding of exactly why it is that we do it, because there are so many things that are applicable to lots of situations, even this one.
All right, Trina Morford, go ahead. Oh, Trina, you're muted, hun.
Actually, she unmuted. It's just not picking up the sound.
Hey, Trina, give me just a moment. I'm going to go to Ana Ramirez, and if you want to see what's going on with your microphone, possibly. Go ahead, Ana.
Hello, thank you so much for bringing this very good information. I have a question. Do you ask for a require registration with a QR code, or families just show up at the event?
So we went back and forth on that for a while. What we've noticed is our families just show up. Even if you have an RSVP and you want them to fill it out, you're still going to get probably a bunch of random families that just show up last minute. And so we decided not to do an RSVP or registration for the event. And that's why the first time we did it, we had so much leftover snack because we only had 2 people come. But we still plan for around, when I sat down with my teachers, we kind of came up with a number. We planned for around 50 students, which for us is about 25%, 30% of our population. And so coming up with that number, and then just making sure you have plenty of snacks. You can always use the snacks later. So over prepare and then use the stuff later on.
And, you know, just because we don't do that doesn't mean that you can't do that. That's not something that works in this community. When I put out the very first survey and I had the link, and then I also had a QR code that you could scan, people did not respond that way. That didn't work for them. You know, most people have a phone nowadays, but that was too complicated. So we just overplan, and, you know, if you plan, they will come. So, but that may work for somebody else. That's just not something that works for us.
All right, I'm going to ask this question for Trina, who was having some issues, and then we'll go to Carmela. But Trina's question is, are there any ideas for scaling this for middle school or secondary? And if so, what would that event look like?
So I feel like you definitely could do middle school and secondary. Actually, we had the middle school join us that one time for some reading task cards and stuff like that. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm an elementary person through and through, always have been, always will be. Middle schoolers scare me. But I'm sure that you could tailor this to a middle school and high school event as well. And we will look at that in the future for our district to do for Shorty Snack and Learn. But I feel like you need some expertise from those teachers to know what that would look like.
You know, I think an analysis of the data and looking at what it is that you want to do with the kids, you know, looking at a TEKS-based curriculum, and then coming up with a cute activity. You know, even 17-year-old boys want to play a game or do something fun. You know,
vinegar and baking soda.
Yeah, that's anything that explodes or goes pop. That's absolutely going to interest people. But, you know, look at your community. We are a big ranching community, FFA and ag and all that, big here. You know, like we have state and national winners here, big in the community. So if we can, when we do things with our secondary students, if we can somehow relate it to animal science or something to do with farming and ranching or something that their parents may be interested in as well, then our turnout looks a little bit different. Just knowing your community and looking at the TEKS and then getting the parents to be involved, those are going to be your steps. But I don't really have any specific ideas on what that would look like or how you could do it. I guess the same basis, just bump up the level of activity.
All right, Carmela, go ahead.
Thank you for the wonderful ideas. I like all that you guys are doing. Do you allow your parents to maybe suggest ideas on like where you could possibly meet or hang out, you know, next time?
Yeah, so that was something that you could probably put into a survey. You really could. Just knowing our community, we knew Walters Park was going to be the #1 place, biggest bang for our buck. We don't have a lot of separated communities. So when I lived in College Station, you had a lot of different area to cover. We had kids being bussed in from different areas, from government housing and stuff like that. And so that's why in College Station, that's why I brought that up, because they had 3 teams that actually went to targeted locations. And it was at the same time, 3 teams, same subject and everything, just different locations. And so again, I think it goes back to what will fit for you and your community. But I mean, definitely if you feel like a survey for where parents would want you to be, that would be great.
You know, I'm looking at, so you're Galena Park, you may need to do several in different areas in your community, like do different communities, like different places around. Look at who it is that you're targeting and try to make sure that you're in the midst of them. I think I said this earlier, but the big thing for us is that the kids could walk there. They don't have cars. They can't get there otherwise. So, you know, you want to put yourself in a place that people are going to be able to have foot transportation to get there. But you may want to look at doing, you know, the same type of activity in several different locations and to cover all your ground and cover all the people that you need to cover.
You know, funny story about this park and how close it is. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, yes, as you were speaking, we do have 2 nearby parks. They're probably about the same distance from each other. So I guess, and then maybe even partnering with another school to do an activity. I was just kind of brainstorming as you guys were speaking.
Yeah, no, it's kind of funny because when you go to a park, this is how close this park is to our family's houses. There was a puppy and I took him home because he was stray. Obviously, it's a stray dog. I'm going to take the dog home. It ended up being one of my students' dogs. I stole him. And so luckily we found the home and everything, but his house was literally almost in the parking lot of this park. And so that is why we chose this location, because we knew they were there. So.
And I'm just going to throw out an idea this Thursday. At our last staff development meeting, our principal had like painting with the principal kind of staff development. So she's always dreamed of having that with the parents. I was like, well, what's holding you back, you know? And so I said, let's just set a date, you know? And so that's this Thursday, we're going to do painting with the principal. And it's just really informal, just let the parents engage and talk. And we said bring appetizers, but our parents are bringing like meals because they're used to us having potlucks. And we're like, no, just appetizers. But no, they still want to bring spaghetti and all this stuff. So we'll do with it, you know. But yeah, that's just another idea that, you know, it's just very relaxing. And I tried that. We did that with our church members, our volunteers as well. And I saw a lot of talent, especially in our teams. You know, I didn't
And just
know
letting them
they even
see.
draw that good.
I think that the big thing, and I've said this multiple times, but I just think it's so significant, just letting your family see you in a situation that is not a classroom or building at the school building situation, just to see that you're just a normal person, that you're just, school teaching just happens to be your job. That just happens to be what you do for a living, but you are still the same kind of person that they are. And, you know, their comfort level and their ability to be able to relate to you just changes drastically when they see you outside of your work environment.
Mm-hmm. They get excited and we get excited. Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's Lisa Vernon Thomas. Thomas Vernon, I'm sorry, you have a question that you would like to ask.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lisa Vernon. I'm a licensed social worker and coordinator of student and family services with Frisco ISD, and you all have done a really amazing job. So thank you for your insight and your activities. I think we made mention of it as far as the survey is concerned. That's something I was wanting to know. What kind of feedback, what kind of kid or parent feedback have you received based on what you have done that has been insightful, has been positive? Any kind of tangible things that they have taken away in any kind of applications of the activity?
Yeah. So what you got there? I haven't done an official survey or anything. As you have heard many times, our community is not really huge about surveys. But just in my interactions with parents, I actually have had parents this year come up to me recently in the past month and be like, when is this snack and learn coming up? I'm like, okay, well, it's coming up on this day, you know, we're planning it. And of course the kids, they ask too all the time. They just get really excited about it. But when you're actually at the park, I think that's where the feedback comes into play the most. And it's always been positive. I haven't had a negative feedback given to me from a parent because I tend to go check on them purposefully and ask them how they're doing. And they're always like, this is so great. Like, thank you so much for doing this. And I'm like, oh, absolutely. You know? And so I think it's more of an informal survey that we do in our events. And then of course, you know, the kids wanting it to happen, the parents asking when it's happening, that tells me we need to keep going with this.
So we've not surveyed for the specific event, but so I got here, I told you I've been here about a year. So right after I got here, I did a family and community survey just to kind of feel things out and see where people stood. And it was in that data that we discovered that the families were interested in learning more about the academic side. They loved the things that were going on. I mean, this elementary school especially is a campus that does a lot of things with the community and family and gives them lots of opportunities to be engaged in as many ways as possible. But they wanted more, and they wanted academics. They wanted to learn more about the academic piece. At the beginning of this school year, we did a specific parent-family engagement survey to find out what parents viewed as what engagement was. And the reason behind that was not only to find out what it is that they were interested in doing, but to find out if they even understood that every little thing that they're doing at home is engagement, to kind of build up the way that they feel about things and the way they feel about the job that they're doing in parenting. And what I found was that most of them had the same idea about parent-family engagement that maybe teachers had 20 years ago, which was you gotta come to the music program, and you gotta come to reading night, and you gotta come to this, and you gotta come to that. There wasn't a recognition of the fact that doing fluency with your child at home and signing at the bottom. And I know that's simple, and there may be people in the room who don't agree with me that that is a way of engaging. But you know what? If you've got a mama who is working 3 jobs and the only thing she can do with her kiddo is listen to him read and sign off at the bottom, even if you're not positive if he's really reading it, even if you know he misses more than 7 words, the fact that she sat with him, or the fact that that little kid comes in and says, "My mama listened to me read," listen, that's engagement. That's engagement. So I think building capacity with parents and families to help them understand was knowledge that I gained from a survey. I do virtual town halls. I've got actually another one coming up next week. I think I've done 5 this year so far. And parents are allowed to submit questions, or community members submit questions, and then I answer those on a Facebook Live. And one of the things that comes up every single time is something about parent-family engagement, like what can we do, or how can we do, or we love what y'all are doing, but can we do more? I think pretty good feedback on a variety of platforms and a variety of situations. We just put out our comprehensive needs assessment survey, as we are building our campus improvement plans and our district improvement plans, and also specifically targeted parent-family engagement, and flat out asked, do you feel welcome on the campus? That's critical. Just to kind of a plug for service centers, if you've not been through or had your staff go through a customer service in schools training, you talk about an awakening. Feeling welcome at school is going to be one of the barriers that you face, even in going out to Shorty Snack and Learn. If people don't feel welcome, then they're not going to show up. So we asked if people felt welcome. We also asked, do you feel like there are activities that are built to provide you with information on how to help your student at home? Some real specific parent-family engagement questions, and that survey's still out. We have, as I said, we're in the 690s right now. And I want to say, I haven't looked this week, but last week when I looked, we had 400 responses, and that's pretty big. That's pretty big. I mentioned that I bug the dog out of people. So I'm not somebody who readily takes no for an answer, and will literally walk up to somebody and hand it to them and say, "Oh my gosh, I don't think you fill this out." So, you have to push to get that information, but all of the data that we have received in whatever form has aligned with, all of the pieces have aligned. Parents want to know more about academics, and they want to be able to help their kids at home. And that's why we are refocusing and thinking on how we're doing all of our activities to ensure that we're able to build capacity with parents, because that's what they want.
All right, next question. Have you made attempts to be specifically inclusive and inviting for fathers and father figures at your events? How do you help them get past the culture norms that only moms are welcome to engage with the school?
So I'm going to tell you that our dads are super welcome, because we have another program called the Super Horns. And it's basically, if y'all are familiar with Watchdogs, it's our kind of spin on the program. It's called Super Horns. And so our dads show up a lot, because they are welcome on our campus. And we have a Super Horns pizza night, and the dads come with their kids. And I would say, honestly, it's pretty split 50-50. We have dads show up, and we're excited to see them because we know them from the other program we're using, or the other thing we have in place. And that plays a big part in just welcoming our dads and their involvement.
We are not saying, dads, you're welcome. We're not targeting. I think that's kind of what your question was. What are we doing to target dads? We're not targeting anybody specifically. We're just targeting everybody. And it could even be somebody that just cares about the kid, or it could be a brother or a sister. A community members are free to attend. And that's just kind of been word of mouth, I think, in spreading the word about these events, and in knowing the district and knowing the people in the district. We just are certainly inclusive of everybody and want everybody to be there. Now, of course, we make a big show and a big brag about when dads or grandpas are showing up, or when uncle who lives in the next town shows up. We make a big deal out of that. But as far as specifically defining or inviting dads. We're not doing anything special for that. I will say what I know is that one of the things I heard, and this was when I worked at the service center, it was a session that I went to at one of the parent family engagement conferences. And this was really contrary to everything that I had heard before. It said that there has been such a sensitivity to students who don't have fathers that we have suddenly become insensitive to those who do. That no longer do we use the term father, that we're identifying all the other people, all the other men in the lives of these students, and that fathers themselves have started to feel as if they're left out because they're not mentioned. So, we're just all about anybody who loves those kids, or anybody who's in the family of those kids, or anybody in the community who wants to come one, come all, you're all welcome. So that's kind of what our spin is on it.
All right. Speaking of that and the community invitation that you put out there, another question is, how do you address security for these events?
So I think we are blessed to live in a small community, in a rural community, because our police officers are so well known and so available at the ready. The police station is half a mile away from the park. So we haven't really thought heavily about security because we're in such great partnership with our police department.
So with the safety and security, and I think that's what you're referencing, with the safety and security requirements that say you have to have somebody there at school events, we have not thought of that before, to be perfectly honest with you. We are a guardian program school, and we are also, we have had an application for an SRO out there forever and did not have any applicants. So that's why we ended up going with the guardian program. The police station, the police force itself in the city is shorthanded. However, there is always at least one policeman in the district. So we've not specifically identified who security is, but I can tell you that because of my knowledge of the guardian program, we are secure. We are secure. That's just not knowledge that anyone else there has. Certainly you're going to want to follow all the safety and security requirements by the state, and also make sure that you're following your district policy, whatever it is that you have built into district policy that governs events outside of the school day in another location. You will have things built into your policy and campus procedures and policies as well. So make sure that you do all the things that you're supposed to do on your end to keep you within compliance.
All right. Next question that I have is, what was the process you started to get teachers involved in this program when they were so busy?
We had a community outreach committee. So of course, at the beginning of the year, teachers have to sign on to one committee by choice, whichever one they want to do. And I had about 15 people choose the community outreach committee. And that is where the process started my first year here. We talked about some of the issues we were having with, parent involvement, and we all just kind of came to the conclusion that we're going to go to them. And so I've been blessed with teachers who really want to improve our community and family involvement. And there are a few people that are my go-to people who are always at the events or have great unique ideas or super creative. And so I think I've always made it a want to come basis. It's never been mandatory. But I also think just making sure it's fun and hyping it up has made a lot of our teachers want to come for the community part of it. So
from my perspective as a superintendent, just a couple of things, and from being a campus administrator and going through the different positions that I've had, one of the things that I know for sure about teachers is that they are busy. They are busy, and we are not trying to put anything else on anybody. That's why it's not a requirement. But I also am a believer in choose your busy. So as I think I kind of said it earlier, they're going to be in their classroom, perhaps planning the lesson for the next day during that time, or they can be out at the park having a much better time doing activities with lots of kids. So I think balancing out and encouraging, I think those are two biggies, and giving them some sort of a concrete reward for coming. I don't know why Jeans passes are the greatest thing in the world, but they are. Another thing is, and this is absolutely true about every single thing in the school business. When you don't have buy-in for something, when you don't have buy-in, it is because people don't know how it is going to benefit them. What we have seen is that this is beneficial. So once teachers see the benefit of this, once they are able to contact the parent of the student in their room who tends to have difficulty in behaving, and that parent doesn't hang up on them, or maybe they answer the phone for the first time. You know, I think that the benefits outweigh the 30 minutes that they end up spending out at the park. And, you know, I know for sure anytime we've started anything, or even as a campus principal, when I would start something, I would say, I need you to give me a little time. If you'll just give me a little time, let me prove to you that this is going to work. You know, there's a lot of trust involved there, and an expectation that you kind of know what you're talking about. But I also think you have to be willing to say, okay, look, this didn't work. This didn't work. We're switching gears. Yes, we are on plan X right now, but we think it's going to work. Having people who believe enough in your ability to lead and your ability to do that they are going to follow you a little bit without seeing the result themselves. You know, almost having faith in the school district and the situation, and the belief that something can be done that's better than what's being done now. So I had one of my boys was in the second grade. His teacher would say, like, they would do something good, something kind for somebody, or they would, you know, do a good job on a paper or whatever. And kids typically, you know, want a concrete reward. And they would say, well, so what do we get for that? And she would say, the self-satisfaction of knowing that you did a good job. That's what you get out of that. And, you know, you can't say that to teachers, but that's what ends up happening. It ends up being so satisfying to them, and they see all the good things that have come out of it that they want to participate. I mean, I think the fact that we had half the staff at the elementary that has attended the meeting and saying that they want to be a part of it this time is indicative of that.